Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again in this YouTube astrological segment. I'm going to be giving you my Aries March 2022 horoscope forecast, and yes, it does apply and pertain to the Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. Anyway, first up is as far as March goes, the Sun will be in Pisces from the 1st until the 20th. So the 12th house is what will be emphasized and highlighted for Aries. Well, Aries, at this time, you might feel certain limitations in your vitality. There might be more of a focus on spirituality, the metaphysical, which includes astrology, poetry, dancing, and solitude and seclusion at this time. And could also be a time too where maybe it's a time to shine in behind the scenes matters. It could be where you put a lot of attention on helping those less fortunate, but doing so in a way like making anonymous donations. As an example, you're talking about the 12th house of the hidden. Pisces is connected with the less fortunate. It's sacrifice, and it's a time too where, keep in mind the Sun is also connected with the biological father and children. So it could also be a time where these people may be factoring more in your private life at this time, more so than usual. But it could also be the things that these people might be playing some role in secret sorrows, or there might be a dominant male figure that might maybe a Pisces Sun, Moon, or Ascendant person, or embody those traits. Might be really might be at this time, be factoring into secret sorrows. The 12th house is also the house of self-undoing, and it can be a time where there's focus on things that are unattainable or unrealistic. That in itself could be the self-undoing at this time. Now, another thing too, excuse me a second. As far as March goes, the Sun will be in Aries from the 20th until the 31st. So at this time, the first house is what will be emphasized and highlighted. Now, at this time for Aries, it's interesting, the Sun, you're talking about the 12th house being emphasized, first off of being in Pisces, then transitioning to energetic Aries, and the first house being emphasized and highlighted. It's a time where you may have an abundance and surfeit of energy, even more so than usual Aries. Yes, Aries is generally very energetic, but there might even be an increase at it in that energy level at this time. It's interesting astrologically, collectively, when we're talking about Western astrology transits, when the Sun traverses Aries, when it first enters Aries, it's that time when spring officially begins, and people do feel more energetic, they feel more enthusiastic, they want to make new starts. And it's interesting how it does coincide with the Sun in Aries, and Aries is arguably the most energetic. Well, the signs of Leo's energy is nearly inexorable, but Aries is very energetic. But anyway, it's a time where there could be more of a focus for Aries on the physical body. It could be also some issues with the head, the skull, the face at this time. There could be headaches or some kind of inflammation that you may be dealing with at this time. Could also be, time to where the biological father and child may be more, if applicable, if you have any children, may be more instrumental in new beginnings for you at this time. There also might be a focus, could be on new beginnings at this time. It can be doing something Aries related, such as something with firefighting, welding, carpentry. It could be taking up a combat sport, self-defense. Maybe it's some work that involves the head, like some kind of helmet production, as some examples. And there's just more of an emphasis on the self at this time, I would say, more so than usual at this time. The Sun is also about creative energy. So this creative energy, if you're doing, something, again, if you're doing like work with the head, like designing helmets for that part of the body, if you're designing helmets, this is a time where you could be more creative in doing so. More so than usual. If you're doing something with welding or carpentry or trying to build something, it can be a time where that might be more, whatever you do with it may be more creative than it ordinarily would. Well, next up, well, the moon is, we're going to have a new moon in Pisces on March 2nd. So at this time, for Aries, the 12th house is what will be emphasized and highlighted. Now, this could be a time where you may make Aries may make a new start. It might be beginning to sacrifice for those that are less fortunate than yourself. Maybe it's doing some behind the scenes work, like in special effects as an example, or showing some sacrifice just in general, or it could be for an aunt or an uncle. At this time, it could be a time where maybe you're expressing altruism and compassion for the less fortunate, or it could be again for the aunt or an uncle. It might be making some private contributions and doing so in hidden matter, where you're doing it where you're anonymous, as an example. And there might be a time too where, even though this is a new moon, the fact that the 12th house is being emphasized and highlighted might also be some limitation in the emotional expression at this time. If you are planning on something new, now the new moon is introspective, but the fact that we're talking about the 12th house being involved, it might be more hidden. It might be something that you really, if you're starting something Pisces related, you may be more apt to keep it under wraps at this time. Now, next up, there's going to be a full moon in Virgo on March 18th. So for Aries, the 6th house is what will be emphasized and highlighted. Well, at this time, this could be the start, could be of some employment. That could be Virgo related. It may be something with data analysis or detailing, something with computer programming, something that involves cleaning, being a professional cleaner, a professional organizer. As some examples, it could be extrapolating data. And it might be a time where your health, or it might be more like a time where, well, again, this is the full moon. I'm sorry, I should say these things might come to an end at this time. My bad. If you're in a Virgo profession, if you're doing something with data analysis or computer programming, it may come to an end, but it could also be a realization or revelation to yourself that you are capable of doing something Virgo related, as something as far as employment goes. So it can indirectly, I could see a full moon in some cases manifest as the start of something, because one could become more cognizant of some ability that he or she maybe was not aware of previously. But this is still more, I would say, it leans more towards something coming to an end. It could be maybe if you're being overly scrupulous regarding your diet and your daily routine, health related matters. It might be a time where, or maybe being overly worried about your health, taking a lot of precautions that maybe were excessive. At this time, keep in mind that the COVID variant may have already peaked. We might be on the decline with the COVID variant at this time. So collectively, for many, it might be a time where people just being worried and just being anxious about their health may be starting to come to an end at this point, because Dr. Fauci said that around mid-February he had projected that we could very likely have reached the peak of the COVID variant, and we're already at this time. The full moon in Virgo is going to be basically in mid-March. This could also be a time where you might become tired, exasperated, full, so to speak, of an overly critical or judgmental. It could be a worrisome, overly pedantic. It could be a fellow employee. It could be an aunt or an uncle. It might be someone prominent in your daily routine. Maybe you've been worrisome over a pet, and maybe that comes to an end at this time. Now, another thing we'll get at next thing on. Well, as far as March goes, Mercury is going to be in Aquarius from the 1st until the 10th. So the 11th house is what will be emphasized and highlighted. So at this time, Aries, this could be a time where you may emphasize communications. That could be Aquarius related regarding your future, which could include astrology or astronomy or computers or electronics. Innovation is some examples. It might be a time where you're thinking that you're thinking about being more considerate toward your friends, toward acquaintances at this time, and thinking might just be more progressive, just in general, regarding your future. And this could be more conversations with stepchildren, if applicable, talking about Aquarius related things. Again, things that could be connected with the future, goals, aspirations, as some examples. Hold on a moment, people. And also, too, communication in it could be in Aquarius related groups, clubs, and organizations may be emphasized. It could be a computer, electronics groups, astronomy group, a group that may be connected with humanitarianism, meteorology as some examples. Now, Mercury is going to be in Pisces as far as March goes from the 10th up. It's like till the 27th. So at this time, the 12th house is what will be emphasized and highlighted for Aries. So at this time, well, just the fact that the 12th house is emphasized tells me that it could be a time for Aries where communications may be more limited. It might be where you're talking about the metaphysical, which includes astrology, poetry, dancing, the paranormal, in private with others at this time. Or it could also be a time to, keep in mind that Mercury is also connected with siblings, cousins, and neighbors, and it might be a time where one or more of these people could actually be an adversary or maybe tied in to secret sorrows. It might be something over something deceptive or duplicitous on their part. And also to keep in mind too, Aries, to be careful that talking being deceptive possibly in communications might be the self-undoing at this time. There might also be, the fact we're talking about Aries and the 12th house being involved, that conversations may be more cryptic and ambiguous. So it's important to make sure what is actually being said and nothing is taken the wrong way. Aries is known to be impulsive and impetuous and very outspoken, so it's a time to be extra careful regarding something that was said that might simply be an unintentional slight. Now, Mercury is going to be in Aries as far as March goes, from the 27th until the 31st. So the first house is what will be emphasized and highlighted. This could be a time, Aries, where you might find yourself talking more about yourself. It might be matters of self-interest. It could be new beginnings. It could be things connected with firefighting or welding or carpentry or the military or even combat sports. It may be a time where you just come across as more loquacious at this time, more articulate than you may have been previously. And there may be more conversations at this time with a grandparent or someone that was prominent in early childhood, and maybe an Aries sun, moon, or ascendant person, or simply one that embodies Aries traits. So you may be talking about yourself physically at this time. There might be, you might get some news regarding matters with the physical body or vitality. If there's any issues you've experienced with the face, the head, or the skull at this time, or inflammations, these are things that you might find out about at this time. Now, the next thing up, well, Venus is going to be in Capricorn from, as far as March goes, from the 1st until the 6th. So at this time, the 10th house is what will be emphasized and highlighted. Well, for Aries at this time, this could emphasize making money in your career, which you ordinarily will if you are involved in a career, but it may be even more emphasis. It might be a little bit more than what you ordinarily make. It could be where you might be more, Venus in Capricorn could be very premeditative in monetary matters, and it might be something where maybe you're investing, for something career related. Maybe there's some stocks you're investing in your career at this time, and maybe planning ahead. It might be where you're planning on spending money to invest in a business, perhaps, could be another example. as well. It could also be a time where if you're unattached at this time, Aries, you may connect with a Capricorn Sun, Moon, or Ascendant person, or one that simply embodies those characteristics. It might be your place of business, your career. Um, could also be a time, too, where you might value responsibilities more at this time, more so than usual. And it might be a time, I mean, Venus in Capricorn by itself can manifest in valuing a structure, discipline, responsibility, consistency, longevity, concentration. And that could be on attaining success, gaining notoriety and recognition, and even matters your relationship with the dominant parent, which is often the father. Now, Venus will be in Aquarius as far as March goes from the 6th until the 31st. So the 11th house is what will be emphasized and highlighted. So at this time, this could be a time for you, Aries, that you may value selflessness in matters with friends, in groups, clubs, organizations at this time. It might be the enjoyment of pursuing Aquarius aspirations and goals, which can include astronomy, computers, electronics, meteorology, aviation, innovation as some examples. It might be a time where, if you're unattached at this time, Aries, that you may connect with an Aquarius Sun, Moon, or Ascendant person, or one that embodies those traits. And it might be in some group or club or organization at this time. This could also be an auspicious time for money that is made from a business at this time. Yes, Aquarius energy could be erratic, but it could also be very unpredictable. It might come, something very shocking may come as a result, as far as money goes at this time. It might be a lot more than you anticipated, as an example. In any way, it's just a time right now where Venus is also about our self-worth. So it's important that right now self-worth and friends may go hand in hand at this time, and your self-worth may be predicated and dependent on matters with goals and aspirations, and trying to attain these goals and aspirations, which might be tied in again to something Aquarius related. Now, next thing up, well, Mars will be in Capricorn as far as March goes, from the 1st until the 6th, so the 10th house will be emphasized and highlighted. Now, one way this transit could manifest, it could be something where the situation with the dominant parent, often the father, older people, authority figures, may be more contentious, even acrimonious than usual. There may be arguments connected with responsibilities. It could be one's career. It could be having structure and discipline, consistency, accomplishments, things of that nature at this time. And really, it could also be a time where you expend a lot of energy in matters. They're very disciplined energy. In career-related matters, it could be just attaining success, trying to attain notoriety and recognition at this time. But keep in mind, Mars is also connected with injuries, so just be careful, because there may be greater propensity for injuries. It could be to the knees, the bones, the joints, the hamstrings. Could be doing some work, with the dominant parent again, which is often the father. It could be at your place of business. And also there may be battles that are connected with one's public image and reputation at this time. You have Mars being in Capricorn, the sign that's connected with that. Accomplishment means connected with status and reputation, and you're talking about the 10th house as well at this time. And it can be over just Capricorn is career related, so it might, again, this is a time where you could emphasize a lot of energy going into one's career, and going back again to the fact there might be battles or becoming angry about one's their reputation, their public image, and might have something to do Maybe there's issues with consistency or structure or discipline at this time, being responsible and taking accountability for things. Maybe it has something to do with general coldness or callousness. Now, Mars is going to be in Aquarius as far as March goes, from the 6th until the 31st. So the 11th house will be emphasized and highlighted. So at this time, hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, this could be a time for Aries where there might be more battles with friends at this time. It can be a time where you may expend a lot of energy and vitality in Aquarius related goals and aspirations, which can include astrology, astronomy, computers, electronics, altruism, humanitarianism. It may also be a time as well where you look at Mars. As stated before, Mars is connected with injuries, so there could be a greater propensity for injuries to the ankles, the shins, the calves at this time, nerves, and it might be doing something, something group related, where you might, where this could happen. And Aquarius also has a connection with electricity, so just be careful of high voltage and taking your precautions if you're doing any kind of wiring with any friends at this time or something group related. Could also be a time too, I mean, Mars is also about drive and motivation, so you may be more driven and motivated toward matters that are connected with your future at this time, more so than usual, and also driven and motivated to make money from a business at this time. Aquarius energy can be very positive. It can be very futuristic and forward moving, so it may be a good transit for doing so at this time, as far as using energy to try to make money from a business you may have at this time. Now, the next thing up, Jupiter is going to be in Pisces for the entire month of March 2022, so the 12th house is what will be emphasized and highlighted at this time. While in some cases this may simply just manifest in limited exuberance and enthusiasm and optimism, you might keep your philosophies and beliefs hidden at this time. You might be more inclined, Aries, to not talk about them that much. It could also be a time where you may people that are Jupiter, connected with Jupiter, with their publishers or advertisers, philosophers, they can be hidden adversaries at this time. They can be Pisces, Sun, Moon, or Ascendant people, or embody those traits. It could also be a time where there could be an enlargement of deception. It could be behind the scenes, behind closed doors at this time. And being, I would say too, the few of you out there that might be above average drinkers, keep in mind, or if anybody sees us that's involved in drugs, recreational drugs, that's illegal, you need to, this is a time where, an emphasis on that could be the self-undoing, at this time, because Jupiter is, as I've spoken about in previous videos, it's very paradoxical. It's strongly benign and benevolent, but also a tendency to enlarge and expand. And it could enlarge and expand alcohol and drug use in solitude and seclusion. And the 12th house, again, is the house of the self-undoing. So it's something to keep in mind at this time. But it could also enlarge compassion and sacrifice and altruism for those less fortunate than yourself, such as the impoverished, the oppressed, the homeless, and the hungry at this time as well. Now, and there might even be more, it might enlarge chaos in your private life as well. Now, next thing up, well, Saturn is going to be in Aquarius for the entire month of March 2022. So at this time, the 11th house is what will be emphasized and highlighted for Aries. Well, Aries, you might find yourself at this time, it could be finding yourself having more responsibility to friends at this time. Maybe helping. It could be doing. You may be taking care of friends and helping them out, working hard for them, but doing so very altruistically and selflessly. Now, collectively, Saturn and Aquarius, I think the way this is manifesting for many is that there's inhibitions and restrictions with society in general due to the COVID variant being prevalent, and may still very well be prevalent in some parts of the world at this time. And I think with Aries, the way it's impacting them the most is at this time is the 11th house, which is about their friends, their groups, their clubs, organizations at this time. Maybe there's even dealings with stepchildren, if applicable, that it's really impacting. And this could also be a time where you might feel this time, Aries, that matters with these things, with friends, with acquaintances, and in groups, clubs, and organizations. There may be more limitations at this time associated with them, just in general. And you might feel at this time as well, you might be taking care of a sickly or debilitated, could be a stepchild if applicable, or a friend or acquaintance and somebody that is prominent in a group, club, or organization. There may also be some restrictions too in money that is made from a business at this point in time. Anyway, well, next up, Uranus is still going to be in Taurus, of course, and so for the entire month, March 2022. So the second house is what will be emphasized and highlighted at this time. Well, one way this may manifest, it could simply be where the finances for you, Aries, may be erratic and sporadic at this time. You may make money doing something Uranus related, such as astrology or something with computers, or it could be electronics or aviation or meteorology as some examples. It might be a time too where you might have more Uranus values. If you want to say Uranian values, it might be being innovative. It could be being innovative, ingenious, selfless, altruistic, wanting to move forward. It may be a time too where you might find yourself where you may be more apt to make more, put money, maybe be more involved monetarily, like with cryptocurrency. Uranus in Taurus, second house. I think this emphasizes a lot of, I guess you could say innovative. It could be investing. The fifth house is really the house of investments, but the second house is connected with monetary matters. So cryptocurrency may be involved, I would say, during this transit for Aries. Now, the next thing I want to get at is that also keep in mind Uranus is associated with friendships. So friendships may play an integral role at this time in self-worth, self-esteem, how you feel about yourself, and your possessions and resources, and just monetary matters in general at this time. Now the next thing up, Neptune is still going to be in Pisces, will be in Pisces for the entire month of March of 2022. So the 12th house is what will be emphasized and highlighted at this time, Aries. Well, you might be dealing with maybe some dreams that are very nebulous or unclear, or it could be a time where you may be emphasizing something Neptune related in solitude and seclusion, whether it be metaphysical or poetry or dancing, photography, as some examples. And the thing about this too could also bring about some kind of chaos in your private life at this time. And it may be a time too for you. I mean, the 12th house could be associated with an aunt or an uncle, so these people may be nebulous or unclear at this point in time. And just keep in mind too that it could be, sometimes it could be lethargy or just sleeping a lot, being, might be the self-undoing at this time. It might be a time also at this time for you, Aries, where you might be, the 12th house, is associated with hidden adversaries. So it might be a time where these people if you're trying to decipher who your friends are at this time, who's really, who may be impersonating a friend, but is actually an enemy, it might be harder to decipher those people at this point in time. But it could also be, or I should say, deciphering who's who. And it might also be a time where you might show a lot of sacrifice, compassion, altruism for those that are less fortunate than yourself at this time. Now, another thing is, last but not least, Pluto is still going to be in Capricorn, and it will be for the entire month of March 2022. So the 10th house is what will be emphasized and highlighted. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, well, one way, this could manifest in some cases. It can be the obliteration of one's public image and reputation. A lot of cases it could just be about doing something Pluto related as a career goes, something that could be associated with investigation or forensics, insurance, recycling as some examples. It could be power struggles too, with authority figures, older people, the dominant parent, which is often the father. But it could also indicate a lot of passion and desire in trying to attain success at this time, trying to gain notoriety and recognition. And it's really just a time to where you have to, you look at this time, and now in some cases it could indicate the literal death of the dominant parent, which is often the father. It could be also be somebody that, it's an authority figure you might have known well, or an older person that was prominent in your life at this time. It could just be a transformation of the career at this point in time as well, and also trying to. It might be just a lot of passion, desire in trying to improve your stature in life and social status at this time. But 10th house people might also be more manipulative at this time, so it's just careful. It's important to be careful regarding this. And I think it's interesting when you look at what Pluto, how it's impacted different people. You look at renowned NFL quarterback Aaron Rodgers, who's had Pluto in his 10th house for some time, or conjunct the midheaven, and it seems like it's been actually beneficial to him in gaining more power in his career, being able to work things where it's beneficial to him with the Packers. But you take like a Conor McGregor, who's had the same transit, and it seems like his reputation has just been obliterated, practically destroyed. Some of you may remember that when he took a dolly, I believe it wasn't through, it had a moving bus, and he broke a window. And then he got into it with he had an altercation in a bar. Then there was another incident when it was like someone's eye or a smartphone, I think. He threw it on the ground and I believe he broke it. So there's really, and it just seems like, a lot of it's predicated on the aspects these planets make when they make the transits, whether they might have more of a positive impact when they're traversing the houses or more of a negative one. Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.